Hi, everyone. It's again Shabbat and actually the end of Shabbat. I'm one day late. I like to normally try to upload this thing on Fridays for you guys, but yesterday was a really, really busy day with all the things. Yes, we've been trying to get some stuff done here. It's been unbelievably awesome with what God is doing amongst all the people here in the House of Cyrus as we are trying to expand to our new projects. And again, I want to take this chance and say hello and thank you to every single one of you that is become a member of this family, all those who are by being a special member, sending support on the line with YouTube, and becoming members, extra supporters, all these things that I don't have names for it, but we are receiving a thank you. And I want to thank every one of you that is purchasing the book and you're just sending it to your friends as gift and supporting us. Thank you all. And those of you who have become a monthly donor on PayPal with us to help us achieve our goal of getting this house renovated and the things with England. We want to say thank you all. So today we have been journeying together on the book of Luke chapter 15 as Jesus was giving the example of the three things that were once lost. One was a sheep, one was a silver coin, and then a certain man with two sons. Now, it's really interesting because in the first story, it says there was a man having 100 sheep, and if he loses one of them, so he starts with that, and then there is a woman having 10 silver coin, and if she loses one coin, but when it comes to the son, then it's different. He says there was a certain man who had two sons. The younger one of them said to the father, "Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me." So he divided unto them his livelihood, and not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and journeyed to a far country, where he wasted all of his possession with prodigal living. So there is really interesting that Jesus starts suddenly taking the whole thing to a different direction and says there was a father with two sons. And then, so the story is a father and sons. And then one of the sons comes to him and says, "Father," to his father, "Father, give me what is mine so I can just leave." And the father divides to them, both of them, and not many days later. I want to share with you some stuff about these two sons. It's really interesting because the son comes up to his father, and in this story, at no point did the son discuss his desires or what his thoughts was about leaving with his older brother. So the reality is there is an underlying story within the story that Jesus wanted to share with us. And this is one of the things the Lord was revealing to me. It's really interesting. And tonight I want to just focus on this very important part. Because when the son comes back, it says, when he was still far away, the father runs to him and gives him the best robe and a ring and sandals. And then he says, "Kill the fattest calf, the best calf, so that we can celebrate and rejoice." But then the other son comes, and the other son hears there is something. He says, "What's going on?" Not asking the father, but from the servants. What's going on? He says, oh, your brother has come home. Your brother has come home, and your father is very happy that he has received his son in good health. And then the son gets upset and the father goes out. And I want to share with you how interesting it is that the father in this story is going out of the house to bring both sons in. It's so interesting that even though one son had never left, both sons had an issue. And there is very interesting because I want you to look at this. It says, when the son came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will rise up and go to my father and will say to him, Father, I have sinned. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. It's so interesting. The father says to the servant, and when he rose and he came to the father, but when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned, so on and so forth. And the father says to his servant, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For my son was dead and now is alive. So a few things. It's really interesting because the father sees one son and runs toward him, and one son he walks toward. One son he has compassion over. One son he says he goes to the son and he says, but as soon as the son, this son of yours who came and who had devoured your livelihood, your livelihood, it was not with the harlot, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. It's so interesting because the father is trying to say to the son, how come you're not coming? He says, I have never transgressed. I have never done these things. But when it comes to the younger son, he doesn't need any convincing to come in who had sinned. I want to say a few things. One, that both sons had an issue with serving. One saying, I will tell my father, I will hire me just like a servant. And the father says, don't you get my heart? Don't you know what I love about my children? That you are my children. I cannot call you servants. I cannot treat you like servants. You know, there is such a huge difference between serving our Father and being a servant to our Father. And sometimes I see Christians always get so confused with that. And they want to act like servants, but we should never act like servants, but act like sons who want to serve our Father. And the second son, the oldest son, is really interesting. He goes out to the son, and that son is working in the field. Why are you working in the field? Your father is the owner of everything, and he has given you everything. Why are you in the field working? and servants are at home. Why don't you manage those servants and get them to work and enjoy your father? Enjoy the position he has given you. Rule over the land that God has given you. The oldest son also had this servant mindset. I am a servant to my father. But the father was never asking him to be a servant. In fact, never treated him to be like a servant. The father had always treated him like a son and an heir to all of his inheritance. But these two brothers both had a similar issue. They never knew the heart of their father for themselves. They never knew how much the father loved them, that the father wanted to leave everything for them, but the father wanted more than that. The father wanted them to know how much he loves them, how much he cares for them, how he has a heart for them, and how precious they are to him. And they had never gotten it. When the son comes to the father and says, give me my inheritance, he thought all that mattered was money. And when the father is talking to the older son says, look, you know what? You haven't even given me a goat. You don't appreciate me. They both never thought the father cares for them as much as he did. They had never known his heart. One was in a servant mindset, too busy to just obey everything that he thought makes him happy, but had missed his heart completely for himself and his brother. It's so interesting that when the younger son came to the father and said, the father gave to them both everything, and the other son still stayed home. Now, I gotta say this, it's so strange sitting at the table of a man you have disrespected. And he's eating, and at no point in the story is it said that he was mistreated in any shape or form. He was put down by a father or the older brother. Why is it that he never gets, wait a minute, how come my father is not disowning me? How come my father didn't give me the finances and say, get out? The father was giving a clear sign that I love you, I care about you. But unfortunately, he had not gotten the father's heart. In fact, the brother never ever invites his older brother to come to see him, which means the brothers never had a very good relationship. The brother had never shared his frustration with the father or his vision to go live in another lifestyle or anything else. It's so interesting that all of that speaks about the brokenness that existed between the brothers and the brokenness between the brothers and their father. The sons both never knew the father very well. They never knew what is important to the father. They both thought that the father cares only about finances, and they took the finances and everything. So one was busy trying to keep hanging on or keep the father's business going. And one was like, oh, I just want the finances and get out of here because I don't think I'll measure up to my older brother because he's always he's busy from morning to night. And look, he doesn't feel appreciated. He doesn't have a life. He doesn't get to spend time with his friends. And they were together, but they were not really friends, did they? When the older brother says, give me a goat, he never says, if you would have given me a goat, I would have celebrated with my brother and others. These two brothers had broken relationship, which brings me to the greatest point, and that is the father had known the son is dead while he was sitting at his table. The father knew that and he is lost the moment he was sitting at his table. It wasn't that when he left the land that he was lost. It wasn't that when he went with the harlot and was wasting his inheritance that he died. He was dead when he was still sitting in the front of his father in his presence and sitting at his table. This week, I was sitting with one of the young men here in our community, and he had done some stuff that we shared with him, and he's been really vague and doesn't want to, and he's had an issue. He's coming from a Muslim background, and he's still dealing with a whole bunch of things, and in a Muslim culture, it is very, very normal, I guess, in this day and age for all the young people to lie and not tell the truth. And so we had to basically talk to him about these things. And as we were talking and everything, and we said, look, it's kind of hard, especially with our hearts, with our community, our family, our style of belief, because we believe we should talk about everything. There is no shame in anything, but we need to talk about it. We need to confront the mistakes, and we need to correct the ways. At this point, he was like, no, and he's completely ignoring the facts and saying these things, and it was kind of hurtful, but then he sat down with my wife and I, and he was just nicely eating his food that we had cooked for him and everything. And there is absolutely nothing. And as I was watching him eat, I was thinking, he's an Iranian guy, I'm an Iranian guy, and if he had done this in Iran, he would have been beaten by the father or somebody to just be taught not to be disrespectful and so on and so forth. But he's eating, and my wife and I, we both our heart is broken for him. And he's feeling comfortable enough to eat at this table. And the Lord said to me, Afshin, do you watch how comfortably he is eating? I said, yeah. So how do you feel? I said, blessed. I said, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how the father felt in the Bible with the two sons, when the son was still at his table after having disrespected him, after having missed the father's plan. And I was like, wow. And then the Lord said to me, Afshin, when did the son die? I said, what do you mean? When did the son die? Because the father said the son was dead. My son was dead and he's alive, and he was lost and he's found. When did he lose his son? When did the son lose himself? When did he die? And I said, wasn't it when he left? And the Lord said, no. Look at the table. Look at the way he is eating. And I was like, wow. Being from the Eastern culture, I see he is already lost while he is in the Father's presence. And he said to me, Afshin, I know this feeling. I said, how, Lord? He said, in the garden, when Adam, my second son, was lost, I told him not to eat. When he ate, he had died, but he was still in the garden. He had been lost, but he is still in the garden, and I'm talking to him. There is that period before he leaves. I was like, wow. I want to say this to you guys. I don't know how much this story is connecting to you or not, but this story has got more than one perspective. This story is about a father who sits at the table with his son who has just disrespected him and shows him so much love that the son feels comfortable enough to sit there and enjoy his meal that the servants have made for him from the inheritance or from the the father's riches or wealth. And he absolutely does not see anything wrong with it, because the father's heart is so big. His father never got offended because he had already recognized the death in his son while sitting at his table. The father had already recognized the death that existed because the younger son and the older brother had no relationship. The father had already recognized that these two were so lost that they don't have love for one another. They don't have relationship with one another. And the father wanted to confront all of that. That's why the father confronting the older brother, saying, this is your brother, not this son of mine. He is my son, and I have restored my son. But you need to also restore your brother. Because when my son was dead and he became alive again, or when he was lost and he was found again, I celebrated. But will you celebrate when your dead brother is risen from his sins, from his mistakes, when your brother is found again? It's so interesting that the son is still insistent of calling his brother still lost and prodigal. And the father refuses to give him that identity and says, actually, he's no longer lost. He is found. It's so interesting when the theologians wrote about him, the lost son. Well, I told my son, Kurush, have you ever lost anything? He said, yes. I said, did you find it after? He said, yes. I said, can you still say that thing which you lost is still lost? He said, no. I said, then if you tell people the story and say, I've lost my wallet, but you found it, is that true? He said, no. I said, isn't that interesting? That we still call him the lost son. Where is he? One day the Lord said to me, they keep telling my sons are lost. They're not. They're in my home. They're calling him lost, but he is found. The theologians could not let go of his past mistake. Those who studied the Word of God, somehow those who were serving him had a heart to do everything by the book, missed the heart of the Father, missed the fact that the Father had called him the found son. He was lost. He was dead. So if they wanted to remember his mistake, the title should have been The Son Who Was Lost, not The Lost Son. Because that's present tense. They should have called him the found son, the risen son. And it's so interesting that him being lost is so magnified, but him being risen from the dead is not. The miracle is missed. I'm thinking for you and I. What about you and I? Do we miss the point? Do we miss the point of the heart of the Father? You know, it's so interesting in these days. We are talking about Israel and everything else. And we think we have to take sides. Either you are with Isaac or you are with Israel or you are not a good Christian. It's so interesting that we miss the heart of the Father. We don't remember a father wanted all his children to come back home. So this week, I'm going to do a video on Israel because the Lord, I had done a dream about Israel and United States. This week, I will actually talk about some of that, and I will share with you what I feel the Lord has told me about Israel and United States losing the war. And actually, yeah, I have seen a vision which both of them, Israel got punished because Israel said, I will punish. And America said, I will teach a lesson. And America learned a lesson. I will talk about that this coming week. Bless you guys. Love you. Thank you again. Please share these things with other friends. We love having you part of as our family. And some of you have been looking for March. I unfortunately had to cancel that because I'm going to Canada in March. So to spend some time with my children. But we are going to try to do that gathering in April, God willing, late April. Blessing on you guys. Till next time.